Welcome back to today's episode of Luminous Pathways. Today we're diving into a poignant and profound story, one that speaks to every single one of us who has ever thought, "I'll do it tomorrow." This is the story of Michael and his journey through life, a tale of regret, realization, and the fleeting nature of time. So sit back, maybe grab a cup of tea, and let's unravel the illusion of time.
All right, ready to dive deep. Today we're tackling time. Something we all deal with but don't really think about much, especially how we see time, like how that shapes our lives. And to get into all of that, we'll be looking at a fictional story. It's called The Deluding Truths, Episode 2, Time.
It's cool how we're using like a narrative, almost like a parable,
Yeah.
to figure out this really human thing, this time thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's not some textbook. It's about this guy, Michael, and he's at the end of his life and has to deal with how he thought about time and how it made him miss out on stuff. It's kind of relatable, right? That what-if feeling about all the paths you didn't take.
Oh, absolutely. I think it hits that like universal fear we all have, regret, right? Like, did I use my time right?
So let's meet Michael. Story starts, and he's alone at home. There's this huge thunderstorm going on. Not just any storm, though.
Right.
It's a metaphor,
Yeah.
right, for what's going on inside him.
You got that right away. Yeah, the author's clever. The storm outside is like the storm in Michael. It's like time itself is freaking out with him.
Exactly. And as we get to know Michael, we find out even as a kid, he put things off. He always thought, there's still time. It's like his motto, We've all been there, putting things off, thinking we have forever.
Yeah, it's psychology, right? We underestimate how fast time goes, especially when we're young. It's like we're in denial. Maybe to avoid tough stuff we got to do now.
And the story shows this so well. It shows this procrastination, there's still time thing all through his life. Like when he was in school, teachers saw he was smart, but he just didn't do the work. He failed a grade, friends moved on, but he didn't learn,
And that's what's sad, right? It's not just one time. It happens again and again. Procrastination, excuses. He thinks he can catch up later, but later never comes.
Think about it. Have you ever felt time slipping away, like on a project or a goal? Where did that lead you?
Good question. I think this story reminds us. Small choices about time, they add up. They can change your whole life. It's so true. And it's not just school. This happens with his relationships, too. There's this part where his best friend's like, hey, study. But Michael's all, nah, there's time. He goes to play instead. It's that thing we all struggle with, right? Fun now or goals later.
Exactly. And here's where the story gets deep. It's not just being lazy or bad with time. It's deeper. Maybe he's scared to fail or commit. Maybe he messes up on purpose. Because deep down, success is scary.
That's a great point. It's not just what he does, it's why. His fears, they control how he uses time.
Yeah. This is why this is interesting, right? It's not about schedules. It's about why we act the way we do with time itself.
So the story goes on, and we see what happens from all these choices. Michael misses a big chance to join his brother's business because he doesn't want to be tied down.
And that's important, because it shows how thinking you have tons of time, it makes you choose freedom now instead of good stuff later. We tell ourselves, I need time to figure things out. But sometimes that's just an excuse. And then there's Emily. She's in love with Michael, but he just can't get it together. He always says, later when I'm ready. But guess what? She gets tired of waiting and leaves.
It's sad, because Michael's not a bad guy. He has potential, he could love, but this messed up view of time, thinking it's endless, it makes him waste these chances to connect, to grow.
Yeah, it makes you think. But it also shows we can all choose differently. We don't have to fall for that later trap.
Totally. We got to realize time isn't just something that happens. We create it with what we do.
Okay, so we've seen Michael with school, relationships, but it doesn't end there. Things get really real when Michael loses someone. His dad dies.
Yeah. That's when time becomes like super real. It hits you. The people you love won't always be there. This wakes Michael up, don't you think?
Absolutely. He sees time for what it is. It ends. It keeps going no matter what. But will this change him? After all this time thinking he has forever?
That's the question for the rest of the story. And we'll get into that in the next part of our deep dive. But before we do, listener, what do you think about Michael so far? Do you see yourself in his story?
That's something to think about as we keep going with the deluding truths. We'll get back to Michael in the next part. See you then. Back again. So we left Michael dealing with his dad dying. Like, that really made him see time isn't forever, but it's not all doom and gloom, is it?
It's cool how the story changes here. The storm outside, it calms down, and Michael feels like peaceful. He knows he can't change what happened, but
Yeah.
now he really wants to use the time he has left. Like he finally woke up.
And now he decides to write a letter
Hmm.
to his nieces and nephews. But it's more than just a letter, right? It's like his, I don't know, his legacy, what he learned, even if it was the hard way, passing it on.
But the letter is like symbolic, He's trying to control time, kinda, influence the future, even though he can't change the past. Like he wants to make up for his mistakes so they won't have to feel his regret.
So what's in the letter? Can't just be, don't be lazy, kids.
You're right, it's way deeper. He's like, time isn't forever, guys. It's precious. Use it wisely. He wants them to live with purpose, follow their dreams, be good to people. He even talks about like enjoying the moment, not always worrying about what's next.
That's interesting. He doesn't say, like, I screwed up, don't be like me. But it's there, in the whole letter. Is that better than just saying it? It's more subtle, maybe hits harder that way?
Yeah, good point. It shows how stories work, right? He tells his story, his struggles, what he learned, and they figure it out themselves. It's not preaching, it makes them think.
What about you, listener? If you were Michael, what would you put in that letter? What would you want those kids to know?
Makes you think, right? It brings us back to this whole deep dive. How are we using our time? Are we doing stuff we believe in, stuff we want, or are we letting later run our lives?
And the story really asks that. There's this part, it's so sad. Michael finishes the letter, leaves it on his desk, and he falls asleep. Like he's finally okay with himself, his past, ready to, go.
Beautiful, right? The storm's gone. Outside and inside him, it's over. He's accepted it. He tried to fix things by helping the future. It makes you wonder, is that enough? To die peacefully, knowing you changed the future but couldn't change what you did.
Wow. And the story ends with this epilogue. It's sad, but it makes you think too. Michael's family, they find the letter. They're sad, of course, but they're also like, wow, thankful for his words. They see his life, even with the bad stuff, as a lesson.
Like his story changed them in a good way. They promised to, live each moment, do things on purpose, and not get tricked by time like he did.
Well, it's not just talk, right?
Yeah.
They really change how they live, what's important. It's like his story keeps going.
That's what this is all about. Michael's story isn't real, but what it means, we all feel that. We have to look at how we see time. Are we using it right? Will we be proud when we look back? Or are we just letting it go one later at a time?
You're so right. This isn't just about Michael. It's about us listening right now. What hits you the most about his story? What can you use in your own life?
Think about it. We'll be back soon to finish up this deep dive with some final thoughts about this time illusion and how to break free.
Welcome back. We've been with Michael through his whole life, seeing his regrets and how he tried to make things right. But what about us? What can we learn from all this?
I think it shows, how we see time versus how it really is. We think it's forever, we can always do stuff later. But it's not. Time is the one thing you can't get back.
Yeah, it's like we're on this train and it's going fast. Everything's changing, new stuff happening, new people. But we get so busy watching it all go by, we forget to enjoy the ride,
Yeah.
Like just be in the moment.
And sometimes you miss your stop completely and you can't go back. Michael's story is like, oh, wake up call. Time doesn't care if you're getting around to stuff. It just keeps going. So it's up to us. How do we use the time we have?
So how do we stop thinking we have all the time in the world? How do we not end up like Michael with all those regrets? What can we actually do?
That's the big question, right? There's no one answer. But remember that letter. He talked about purpose, being good to people, following your dreams. It sounds simple, but it's easy to forget when life's so busy.
I know, right? There's so much going on, so
Yeah.
much to do. We forget what's really important. It's like we're just going through the motions, not really living. And that's what Michael makes us think about, what really matters.
It's about doing stuff that matches what you believe in. Like, what do you want to do with your life? What kind of mark do you want to leave? And the big one, are you spending your time that way right now?
I like that. It's not about managing time. It's managing what you care about, making choices on purpose. Because even little things, they add up to your future.
Yeah, enjoying what's happening now, but also thinking about where you're going, enjoying the trip, and having a destination you're excited about.
And remembering, none of us know how much time we got left. No
Yeah.
rewind button, no pause. All we have is right now.
That's what Michael's story is about, choosing. We can't choose how much time, but we choose how to use you.
So as we finish up this deep dive into the diluting truths, think about this. What's one thing you can do today to really use your time, to get closer to the life you want, the life you won't regret.
It could be calling someone you care about, starting that project you've been putting off, or just taking a minute to see the beauty around you. Whatever it is, make this moment matter.
That's perfect. Until next time, deep divers, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep using this precious time we have.